Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to look at how to compare the standard deviation of two different sets of data so we can figure out the consistency of those two sets of data and kind of compare the two different data sets to figure out which set has more spread within the values. So the example says, two collegiate women basketball players are being considered for an award, which is to be given to the most consistent player with the highest scoring average for the season. The number of points scored per game for all the games played during the season is given in the table below. A says to calculate the mean and standard deviation of the number of points scored per game for each player. And then B says to use your results to determine which player should be granted the award. So let's pick this apart a little bit. One of the difficulties with statistics in general as the course is the reading comprehension. So let's just kind of go through this and look really closely. We've got two different collegiate women basketball players that are being considered for an award, so we want to compare those two to figure out who's going to get the award. The award is going to be given to the most consistent player with the highest scoring average for the season. And then we're told also, little hidden thing here is that it's for all of the games played. Since it's for all of the games played, we're talking about the population data, not sample. So it's going to come into play when we're trying to figure out the standard deviation. Now, I'm not going to go into the calculation for this, but I'll show some screenshots of how we can calculate this, both in GeoGebra and in the TI calculator. Let's first look at GeoGebra. If I were to calculate this in the GeoGebra app, I would put a set of variables. I would define B for Barbara and K for Caitlin, just so we can fit both in the same screen here. Now we've got both in the same screen. So B represents the data for Barbara, K represents the data for Caitlin. Notice that I have used the curly brackets here. There's another video that shows how to enter data. From here we could find the mean for Barbara and the mean for Caitlin. We'll notice that the mean for both are 23. And then notice that the standard deviation was calculated with the population standard deviation in mind, so we can compare the population standard deviation for both. For the TI calculator, what I would do is I would enter all of Barbara's data into L1, all of Caitlin's data into L2. Then we can use 1var stats. To access this, again, we're going to press stat, use the right arrow, go to calc, and then it's number 1 for 1var stats. We'll enter list 1 to find the mean and the standard deviation for Barbara's season. Sorry, drew a blank there for a second. And we can use L2, again, do the same thing, stat, calc, number 1. Go to change the list to L2. We can access L2 by pressing the second button, which is the blue key on the top left, and then choosing the number 2. Right above the 2, you'll see a blue L2. We can get the mean and the population standard deviation for Caitlin, and we can compare them now. So I've filled in the table with the values for the mean and the standard deviation for both Barbara and Caitlin. So let's look at what this means to us. Well, the person that's granted the award is the player with the highest average and that is the most consistent. So we could look over here at both Barbara and Caitlin's data sets. I'm going to look for the highest and the lowest value in both. We could talk about the range real quick. In a previous video we talked about that. Oh, that's not the highest. 45 is the highest. The range is the difference from the highest to the lowest. So 45 minus 5 is 40. And the range for Caitlin, we'll find the highest and the lowest quick. Looks like 15 and 35. Let me just do one more look. Yeah, so the range here would be 20. So Caitlin has definitely scored more points in a game than Barbara has definitely scored more points in a game than Caitlin has, but Barbara has also scored less points in a game than Caitlin has. So in terms of who was the most consistent, Caitlin was the most consistent because most of her data values are closer than Barbara's are. There are less varied. Caitlin's scores are less varied than Barbara's scores. And we can see that just by looking at the actual lists of their scores and by also looking at the standard deviation. So the standard deviation is a good way of thinking about the typical change within a data set. So Barbara's scores change more on average than Caitlin's do. And here's what I would say if I had to answer this question myself. Caitlin wins the award because her scores are less varied and therefore closer together or more consistent. The range is smaller and the standard deviation is smaller for Caitlin.